A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Mary Flood, consultant with Androvet Legal Media and Marketing, and Marco Roberts, chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Mary, Marco, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Panel, as we learned Tuesday from Houston Public Media education reporter Dominic Anthony Walsh, more Houston ISD campuses will face sweeping reforms next school year. State-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles is expanding his new education system model to include a total of more than 110 schools identified as struggling to meet state standards. Next school year's additions include Westbury and Sharpstown high schools, along with 24 elementary and middle schools. 24 other schools will get the option to apply for the reform program, which shifts them to centralized schedules and classroom instruction models. It also establishes higher salaries for some teachers while excluding librarians. Mike Miles' new education system will expand next year. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Marco, start us off.
I'm going to say hopefully good. I think it's too early to tell. This is a really big subject. I mean, it touches so many elements that I think people should just approach this topic with caution because of so many elements that are involved in it. And I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I think there's something to be said for the criticism that's being leveled already. I mean, I read some of the materials describing these new plans. Some of them seem concrete. Others are very vague. You know, when they talk about, and we're going to implement innovative solutions, I'm going, you're just saying you're going to do something new, that is the plan, is to do something different because things are not working well. And so I'm always a little bit suspicious when I see a lot of corporatees, ladling the entire plan. On the other hand, there are some specific things that are being done. I know some people are complaining about the elimination of some of the funding for other services, particularly what they call the wraparound social services. This may not be such a bad thing, though. The one thing we have to admit is that what we have been doing hasn't worked, and the arguments that these things would improve things didn't pan out. I think a case could be made that perhaps putting too much on schools isn't the answer, and that whatever support we want to give to needy families maybe needs to go through a different direction, and rather than having schools get so distracted on so many different missions and goals that it's just not realistic for them to do this. I know teachers, I have some in my own family, and their complaint has always been that we have too many demands, and fewer and fewer is about teaching in the course, and it's more and more about so many other initiatives. And when we ask the question, this is the teachers saying, where is the time going to come from? We never get an answer. We just make it fit. But there's only so many hours in a day. You can't just make it fit. So I'm going to say cautiously good. I understand people's concerns, but I think we need to give it a chance because what we have today, I think anyone can see is dismal. If anyone looks at the gradings at the schools, it's shocking to see where we are today.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, Mary?
Well, one of those probably, Craig. I just don't know. I don't know enough about how the schools are going and how this might turn out, just like you. I'm just not sure, but I am no fan of Miles. I did not like him second-guessing the freeze decision. I thought that was kind of dangerous and ignorant, and I didn't like him closing libraries or excluding librarians. I didn't like him spending money on a musical honoring himself. And
good point.
I'm worried about the teacher exodus, though I don't know if they're good or bad teachers who are leaving. I think you might need a coordinator of common sense, basically, to get some of this right. If this new reform system is good or not, I just don't know. But I am concerned that that there's been a complaint that some of the fixes in other schools that have already used this are bleeding into the schools that are doing everything right, the schools that don't have a problem, and yet they're starting to follow some of these. I do like the higher teacher pay. I do like the words innovative and high quality, but I don't know what that's going to mean, just like Marco. I like the idea of arts classes. They were very valuable for me as a kid, and I'm still remembering now hearing Carmen when I was in the second or third grade in school. I like the field trips, and I'm not opposed to daily quizzes. But, I was a suck-up kid in school, but I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure of them all having a class called the Art of Thinking. I think that was like half of my law school that was the Art of Thinking. So I don't know about that. But I do know when I had a 17-year-old living with me and going to HISD, the school was just horrible. Her high school was just horrible. I called all her teachers, and they were shocked that I called to see how she was doing. She said that most of what happens during the day was that kids were using multiple colored magic markers to send each other pretty notes. And when she came home, the projects were way under her grade level. So it was really unimpressive. I hope this helps, and I hope Miles maybe gets that, common sense coordinator.
I just want to add to that I do think we talked about this before last year, but that show, that Miles show, I don't know what's going on with this country, but it does seem to be an epidemic of folks in positions of authority, office holders from mayors to superintendents to others. I see this everywhere now. It seems to be spreading, creating these videos and shows which are very self-promotional. I don't know what it is. I think it's very
an unrecognized virus.
I don't know what it is. I think it's very unattractive. I think it's undignified. And when I saw that, I just thought that it was hard to explain.
Ridiculous.
Panel, a 61-year-old man wrongfully accused of an armed robbery here in Houston in 2022 and whose attorney says was sexually assaulted while in jail is suing the parent company of Sunglass Hut, Macy's, and others, alleging they used faulty AI technology to incorrectly ID him and report him to police. As Houston Public Media's Adam Zuvanich reported Tuesday, Harvey Murphy Jr.'s lawyer says Murphy was in Sacramento, California, when a Sunglass Hut on West Gray was robbed in January 2022. But Murphy was charged with the robbery when the companies in question used facial recognition software to compare surveillance footage with an 80s-era mugshot of Murphy. The lawyer says Murphy was then arrested when he returned to Texas to renew his driver's license and transferred to the Harris County Jail, where the alleged assault took place before his alibi was corroborated and the charge dropped. Now Murphy wants $10 million from the companies who falsely ID'd him to police. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Mary.
Ugly. The government guys involved at both the police at the police level, the DA's level, and even the jailer probably have immunity, which it's ugly for them too. This lawsuit was filed by lawyers at Rusty Hardin's office, and I work with Rusty happily and proudly. Not on this case, but my colleagues at Andervet are working with him, so I'll be fairly brief. But using this unreliable AI to take anyone's freedom away seems just insane and irresponsible and sloppy to me. And I know they had a guy look at the photo and corroborate, but he was told to do so. Nearly 1 in 10, even white males, they make mistakes on this, and they make more mistakes for people of color. And when it's a picture, and this was a picture decades old, it's almost all that are a mistake. And it's just crazy. Now, Mr. Murphy, even his lawyers say he was not a choir boy. The guy was in jail in California. Well, that's his alibi, so it's pretty solid alibi. But I think that the stores, the police, the DA, and the jail should have done more. And I hope this case opens some eyes, both private and public sectors.
I agree with Mary wholeheartedly on this, and I think it's an issue that I think folks from different sides of the political spectrum can agree on. This is certainly an egregious violation of someone's civil rights. And I do think this should be a wake-up call to the state legislature to address this issue before it gets out of control. I think it's possible, I mean, there are a lot of folks on the right and I think on the left that do care about this issue, particularly when it comes to police surveillance. And so I actually think this would be an issue that could, it just hasn't been discussed until now, and now we're seeing it coming up. So I think this might be a rare area of bipartisanship that could secure, our rights for, because like I said, this is an egregious situation.
It has been discussed before now because of the skewing against black people, and I know the ACLU has been pushing this for years.
Well, this has been more recent, and unfortunately, I just to, you bring the ACLU position is not one that's going to sell. I think, if you have to focus more on the concerns that appeal and matter to everyone. The ACLU study, unfortunately, is one study that's not been replicated, and it was conducted by people who clearly had an ideological bent. So it's when you start looking at it that way, that's not going to be a case that people are going to buy.
Oh, I'm not saying that our legislature is going to pay any attention to the ACLU.
But I think, but if you bring it to issues that are more broadly accepted, people can understand. I think anybody can understand.
Absolutely.
The what happened here. So. And of course, so I think that there's something to be done here. And certainly I think the case is so egregious. I think you actually could get something done in this area as long as you keep it away from trying to divide people on the basis of race or try to make it an identity-based issue. I think that you don't have to do that here. There's enough here that you could get a lot of folks on the ground saying this can't happen. It doesn't matter whether it's affecting a certain group of people by more percentages than others, because we can get into that all day long.
I like it that that's us agreeing.
Panel, the Baseball Writers Association of America has voted Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and Todd Helton into the next class inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame. All three eclipsed a 75% vote threshold to be enshrined, but a fourth would-be Hall of Famer fell just short. Longtime Astros reliever Billy Wagner, who at 73.8% was only 5 votes shy of going in this year. Wagner earned 422 career saves over 16 seasons, 225 of them during his first 9 years pitching for the Stros. According to Hall of Fame voting rules, Wagner has 1 year left for the baseball writers to vote him in, or his Hall of Fame fate will be left to future era committees, formerly known as the Veterans Committee. Beltre, Mauer, and Helton are baseball Hall of Famers to be. Longtime Astro Billy Wagner has to wait at least another year. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Marco.
Well, as
you
you
have
guys
a poster of Billy Wagner up at home, don't
Of course, I was about to say, if there's something that was top of mind this week was Billy Wagner and whether he was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Everyone knows that was just torn over this. But no, I'm sure Mary's going to have a lot of thoughts for us on this case. All I can tell you is it's not bad. So it's just nothing. It's something that happened. I will say it's good for this reason. Nothing unjust or unfair happened, right? Nothing unfair happened. So that's good. In this world, we can take our wins where we can. I've heard the criticisms. I can honestly say I come in as a truly unbiased observer to determine whether some injustice has occurred. And I determined that no injustice has occurred. It looked to me from the commentary on social media that it was roughly about 3-1 in favor of him being included versus some saying that, no, not necessary. So it kind of reflected the actual vote. He's got one more chance, so it's not like it's gone for good. I thought it was also interesting to notice that the people in New York were referring to him as a Mets player, not Astros at all.
Yeah. If you look at Cooperstown, they list Yogi Berra as an Astros guy. So he was a coach for us for a couple of years. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And I saw some people were offering, that maybe it's because he hasn't pitched as many innings and that's the reason why. And I'm going, it's all academic to me. You can come up. It's so subjective. Ultimately, at the end of the day, right? That I'm okay with this because nothing unfair has happened.
Because you could care less about baseball.
Well, like I said, I do care about justice, though. So, yes. I do care about that. So if somebody says to me it's unfair, I would say, oh, it's unfair. But I think nothing bad has happened here.
Well, Billy Wagner belongs in Cooperstown, and I hope he gets there next year. He's only 5 votes short. I know my significant other, David Barron, who's a baseball writer, voted for Billy Wagner along with 283 others. I mean, this guy was an all-star 5 times. He belongs there. I read somebody saying it was apropos that he's bringing it right down to the wire, given how many nail-biter games he helped in. I mean, 422 saves is pretty amazing. Our recent Hall of Famers, Biggio and Bagwell, were both, really wonderful about it, talked about what a decent guy he was, how hard he worked, and how much he deserves this. And Biggio was talking about how late it came for him as well in the voting. When he left MLB, when Wagner left MLB, he went and coached a kids team. I mean, he's a cool guy, and he was really gracious about this and about the guys who did make it in. I do feel, and this may not be the baseball writers who do this, but I feel like there's an MLB prejudice against the Astros and those of us on the third coast, not being the California teams or the Northeast teams. And I think that the 2017 cheating scandal where they decided we're going to put our foot down and we're going to make an example of these guys was ridiculous because the Yankees and the Red Sox in a World Series year had done similar things, and they were like minor misdemeanors the way they treated them. So I kind of don't like that. And so I do want to see Wagner, next year. But keep in mind that I think Roger Clemens should be in Cooperstown. And, this week he said, I don't care if I'm there. And I interviewed him in 2008, and he told me then he didn't care if he went to the Hall of Fame. But, of course, right after that, he was, indicted for lying to Congress. Think about that, lying to Congress. Think about how many politicians there lie all the time, how many people lie to Congress all the time, and this guy's tried for it. And the jury, of course, acquitted him. But I think he was cheated, and I sure don't want to see Wagner cheated.
He is a closer. He is a closer, and occasionally closers don't just have to pitch the ninth, but they have to come back out in the 10th. And that's what he's going to have to do next year.
It's going to be interesting to see. We're getting a new closer in the Astros to see what we do with the closer we have now. It's so much fun when they bring him out now and we all use our phones and they play that Mean Johnny Cash song. It's going to be interesting to see what we do next year with two superb closers.
Indeed.
So you do think this was bad?
Yeah, I started out saying it was bad, dear. I think. I don't know. We can throw a flag down and get a replay.
Well, we'll get a third vote on this on Monday's Houston Matters when we talk with Believe in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke about the Hall of Fame and in particular about Billy Wagner. Mary Flood is a consultant with Androvet Legal Media and Marketing. Marco Roberts is chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Mary, Marco, thank you very much.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.